Judges chapter 8. We'll finish up Judges chapter 8. Go ahead and march our way through Amalek. Verse 9, Jerubbaal, the son of Joash, went and lived in his own house. Jerubbaal is another word for, another name for, who is it? Gideon. Jerubbaal is another name for Gideon. Remember, his father renamed him. After he tore down the Baal in his father's village, his father renamed him Jerubbaal. In other words, Baal strives with him. But we know him, of course, as Gideon. That's how we know him, so that's how we're referred to him. So Gideon had 70 sons, his own offspring. These are 7 actual physical sons of Gideon. This is not as many times see where the son of someone is maybe a grandson or further down the line. 70 actual offspring of Gideon. Why? For he had many wives. All right, so we know that Gideon was not a perfect man in God's sight, was he? He had a job to do, and he did that job admirably. He did as God told him to do. But still, as we find throughout the Scriptures, that even the people that God chose to do His work for Him were not always perfect people. And that's a good thing. You know, God don't always look for the perfect to do His will. And we see throughout Scripture where God chose people who were, in many cases, far removed from Him. Nebuchadnezzar. He chose Nebuchadnezzar to visit judgment. He chose Cyrus the Great to rebuild the temple in Jerusalem, right? He sent people back with money and goods to do that kind of thing. And we see it all throughout Scripture. So. But anyway, he goes and he lives in his own house. Now, Gideon had 70 sons, his own offspring, for he had many wives. And his concubine, who was in Shechem, also bore him a son. He called his name Abimelech. Now, Abimelech, we'll see here, is not a very worthy fellow. He's a scoundrel. Let's just put it that way. And we'll see here in a couple of minutes why he is the way that he is. And Gideon, the son of Joash, died in a good old age and was buried in the tomb of Joash, his father, Ophrah, the Abiezrites. I get it right in a minute. Abiezrites. As soon as I love this, okay, verse 33 gives us yet another indication that the children of Israel hadn't learned a lesson, right? You know, Gideon gave them peace from their enemies. Did everything he was supposed to do. They were free from these Midianites who had sought to destroy them. And as soon as Gideon died, what does it say that the people of Israel did? Again, they did what? They played the harlot. They whored after the Baals. And they made Baal Berith their god. Now, just a little bit about Baal Berith. Actually, the world knows Baal Berith. This is the name that the Israelites gave him. The rest of the people who were not Israelites, the Gentiles, at the time, knew him as Beelzebub. Now, Beelzebub is known as Lord of Flies. All right. You'll find that the vast majority of these, and we talked about this last week. By the way, if you didn't get a copy, a handout, they're out there in the foyer on the table. They were the major gods of the Old Testament, the ones that we find about in the land of Canaan, the ones that continue to dwell in the land of Canaan, even after the Israelites came in, because remember, they didn't drive people and their inhabitants. They didn't tear down all the altars and shrines and the temples and so forth and so on. But the Israelites knew him as Baal Berith. And the idea of a berith, was the idea of covenant. So the Israelites would make a covenant, this Baal. And the concept behind it was that most of the Baals, as we find, were gods of fertility, vegetation, harvest, that so forth and so on. So most of their worship was caught up in the idea of fertility. So you can imagine some of the rites and the worship that would go on in regards to these gods. They would worship the idea of fertility. So the temples that were established, the making of the shrines and the individual gods, the statues and so forth, many of them had exaggerated features that emphasized the idea of reproduction. Okay, so you can imagine it, and And we have to remember that, and we talked about this morning, the idea of sin, what sin is to God. Sin is an idea of trespass. God said, you go no further than this. And what were the Israelites doing? They were going, not only, they were taking down the sign, throwing it over their shoulder, tearing down the fence, and marching headlong. They were engaging in all manner of behavior that to God, remember, God is a God of laws, and the way that we are to deal with one another as men and women, how men and women are to deal with one another. A man's supposed to leave his father and mother and cleave unto his wife. So it tells us there's supposed to be one man, one woman for life. Well, what these gods of the Canaanites were doing were saying that makes absolutely no difference. You do whatever you need to do in order to worship and in order for the harvest to be acceptable, in order to have more children, whatever it might be. Remember what causes it, and so that's what we're going to celebrate. And the barriers between behavior, poor behavior, tear those down. Those don't mean anything. So you can imagine God as He's looking down on His children, these people that He has set forth these statutes and these laws and these regulations about how they are to be with one another as husband and wife and as men and women. And you see them literally playing the harlot in the truest sense of the word. Much of the worship that was going on was prostitution in the cult temples. So you would go and you would engage in prostitution so that your petitions might be heard by these false gods. So God is just, He looks around and He sees His people just engaging in the absolute most reprehensible behavior. They've discarded any sense of decency and morality. And this is where they are. And not only that, they're making sacrifices to these gods. They're making covenants with these gods. It's not a simple matter of allowing them just to simply remain and be worshipped by other people. They themselves are giving themselves over to this. So this is the situation that they find themselves in. Doing a little bit of research, the idea of the Baal Berith or the Baal Zebub, the Lord of Flies, one of the ways that they would worship is the representation of this god was literally a fly. So they would make these representations of this fly. And it may be a piece of wood, it may be a piece of metal, it may even be an imprint on a cloth. They would carry this with them on their person, close to them. And at any given time, they might pull it out, they might kiss it, and put it back in their pocket. That was their covenant to that god. That showed that they were obedient to that god, and they were asking petitions of this Beelzebub or this Baal Berith. So you can only imagine the dismay and the disheartening effect that this will have. God is the emotions that we have because God has the same emotions. He's angry, He's sad, He's furious sometimes, He's happy. So when we behave like this, what is God's attitude towards us? What was His attitude toward the Israelites? What was that? At the very least, I mean, the white-hot anger that must be brewing all of the time. He continues to shower you. They're going to these false gods and asking for a full harvest. God gives them the harvest. Who do they think? These guys. They go and they make these. They go